Hello! Welcome to this Price-A-Job tutorial series on how to create a custom module in Price-A-Job. In this video, we'll discuss how to make a simple custom module more advanced by adding adjustable components and dynamic settings. In previous videos, we discussed how to build a basic custom module. Now it's time to take it to the next level by making it fully dynamic. The first thing we'll do in leaving our simple module behind is abandon the simple moniker. Here we can either rename the module here with the three dots and click rename, or we can edit the title directly in the main setup pane, and here we'll call this advanced. And when we deselect the title, it is automatically saved into the module title. Now that we've officially declared our intentions, let's go about the business of making this module advanced. The first thing we'll do is in the main setup pane is we'll click edit mode. And this highlights the module in yellow so that we're aware that we are in edit mode. As a first step, we'll enter our main stage by clicking the three lines menu icon, and we'll add a component. There are a variety of component types that we can add, including input single, input quantity, input range, input text, multi-label, modal, row, text, dynamic variables, dynamic variable sketch, select box, radio buttons, and one more hidden at the top, select pack. To get started, we'll start with a rather simple one. We'll add the input quantity first. As soon as we select this, you can see a component added to our main stage with selectors allowing us to input the quantity. Before we simply add it, there's a little bit of admin we should take care of first. First of all, we should give this an ID to properly name it. The ID is a variable by which this component will be identified. It ought to be short with no spaces or special characters. So for this quantity variable, we'll use a variable ID of QTY. Now we can set a title by which it will be recognized by, and for this we'll type out the name in full, quantity. We can also set the width of our component, and right now it's set at 6 units, which is half width. We could also expand this, say, to 10 units or 12, and you can see the width of the component expanding in the sidebar. We'll just keep it at 6 for now. And for visual reference, it's handy to add an icon for each of our components as well. So let's go ahead and select the Add Icon button here. And we can either choose an icon from the library or upload one from our computer. As it is, the library has one that's perfectly suited for our needs, this QTY symbol here. For the default value, we can set this to any whole number, and 0 would be a good default for us to start with. Under the visibility settings, we can opt to either hide, show this, or set certain conditions, but in this case, we'll just allow it to show. If we have several components, we can organize the position of this component by setting its priority number here. And once you're done your setup, you can click Save. And now let's exit our edit mode. And here is our new quantity component added to our main stage. And you can see that we can click the plus and minus buttons to change the quantity in our component. But at the moment, it doesn't have any effect on the rest of our module. This is simply because we haven't connected it to anything yet. So ideally, we would like this quantity component to be linked to our garden shed quantity here in the materials. So you could easily assume that we would do that by going into the materials menu here. But we don't have any options for editing, and the reason for that is that we're not in edit mode. So first we'll go up to the top of the main setup and enter edit mode. And now when we go to the materials menu, we have a new item here added called edit. So we can select edit for our garden shed material, and that opens our material edit pane. An even simpler way of entering the material edit pane, we'll close that for now, is once we've entered edit mode, we can just simply click on the material. And the material edit pane opens automatically. So in order to link the quantity of our material to the component that we have set up here, is by inputting a formula here into the quantity field. Now the ID that we set for our quantity component is QTY, and you'll notice that it is referenced here with a $sign in front of it, and variables within Price-A-Job are preceded with a $sign. As well, they are stored within a variables library, which we can access here at the bottom by clicking the variable button. Here we can see the variables in the stage that we're currently working on, as well as the variables assigned to each of our various stages. Here under the main stage is the $QTY variable that we're seeking. If we click this icon here, it will copy the variable to our clipboard and also copy it to the current stage that we're working on. So we'll go ahead and select the icon, and here you will see that the $QTY variable has been added to our current variables. So with this copied to our clipboard, we can enter the quantity pane and go ahead and paste that. And now we have the variable QTY added to our quantity field. Let's go ahead and apply our changes, close our panes, and let's test the component now. And you can see as we add quantities within our component is also changing, along with the total pricing for this quantity of sheds. Now let's go ahead and add some more components. We are already in edit mode, so we'll just go into our main stage and add a component. This time we will add an input single type of component, and this shall set the width of our shed. So for the ID, we will give it an ID variable of width, and we will call the title of it width. And we can select an icon from the library, and this symbol here should represent the width adequately. And with this component, we're referring to the width of our garden shed, but the width of the component is actually set here within this width field here. So again, we can set this for any units here, but we'll just leave this at 6 units of width. And for the default value, let's set this at 1.8 meters. And to specify that this component is in meters, let's change the title to width, meters. And we'll go ahead and save this component. And let's add another component. This time we'll add another input single, but this one we will call length. And for the title, we will call it length in meters. And we'll choose an icon, and we'll use a symbol similar to the width symbol that we used for length. And for default value, we will set this at a default of 3.6 meters. And save our changes. But as you can see, our components are staggered on different lines, and it would be nice if the width and the length were side by side on the same line. So to fix that, what we'll do is we'll go into the quantity component here, we'll click the edit icon to edit our quantity component, and we'll adjust the width of the quantity to 12, which fills the line and thereby bumps the width component down to the second line so that width and length are side by side. And that just looks a bit tidier and more professional. So now we can exit our edit mode, and we can see how our components appear. Now the width and the length are important for us to determine the quantity of paving slabs that we require, but what we really require is the area. And that can be calculated using the width and the length, and PriceAJob will do that for us. So let's go ahead and enter edit mode, and we'll add another new component to the main stage, and we'll add component. And this time we will choose a component type of simple text. So we'll just select that from the menu here. And this adds a blank component here, which we can type text into freely. So for the text field, we'll input here area. And now we'll input the formula to calculate the area. And the formula is always held within double curly brackets. So we'll input double curly brackets, opening and closing. And within these double curly brackets, we'll put our variables. So the first variable is $width multiplied by $length. And this variable multiplied by this variable contained within double curly brackets, opening and closing, will automatically calculate the area of our garden shed. And we'll indicate in plain text that this is in meters squared. And then we'll go ahead and save this component. And you can see that PriceAJob has calculated the width times the length as an area of 6.48 meters squared. And we can exit edit mode just to see how this will appear in the module as we use it. And you can see because the area was calculated using a dynamic formula, as we change the width or the length of our shed, the area is automatically recalculated. So this is our dynamic component. Here, if we change the length, we can see the area automatically recalculates. So our garden shed module is getting more advanced already. Let's enter back into edit mode, and under the main stage, we'll add another component. And this time we're going to add a dynamic variable component. And this is actually a formula. This will not be displayed in the pane, but we'll use this to commit a new variable to our module. So for ID, we will call this ID area. And for the formula, we will input width times length. And because this is being saved in a formula field, we do not require the double curly brackets. So we'll go ahead and save this component, but you'll notice that no new components have been added to our side pane here. That's because this dynamic variable component only adds the formula to the module. If we'd like to see the dynamic variable that we just created, we can go to the main stage menu and select Edit Stage. Across the top here, we can select the Dynamic Variables tab. And here we have the area variable that we just created. So let's give this one a proper title of area. If we wanted to create more dynamic variables while we're here, we could do so by clicking the Add button. But for now, we'll just skip that. So let's exit this window. Let's go back into our area component that we created here, and we'll edit this with the edit icon. And now we can change this. We don't need this text component to do the calculation for us anymore. We can replace $width times $length with simply $area, because this is now a valid variable within our module. So go ahead and save that change. And we don't see any change here because the end result is still the same. But when we change the width, we can see that our area is still dynamic. Let's go back into this area component again, and this time let's adjust the visibility. Rather than always showing this component, let's set the visibility of this as conditional. And the default condition is 1. However, let's change that to $area, which is our area variable, greater than 0. So if the area is greater than 0, then the area component will be visible. Let's save that change and exit our edit mode. And now if we change either of our width or length to 0, the area of our shed reduces to 0 and the area component disappears. If we change this back to a number, 1.8, then the area component reappears again. Now this component will only be hidden if we have exited edit mode. If we are in edit mode, even if we set this to 0, the component will still be visible. And this is because we're in edit mode. Even if the component is supposed to be hidden, we still need to be able to see it so that we can do any editing that needs to be done. When you're in edit mode, all components are visible. Now let's connect this area variable to our paving slabs. So because we're already in edit mode, we can just go ahead and select the paving slabs, and that opens our material edit pane. So for quantity, we'll replace this set quantity of 8 with $area. But we're not expected to remember all of these variables. So if you don't recall, we can just go down to the variable button at the bottom and open our main stage to consult all the variables that we've added. And here is the area variable that we created. We'll go ahead and copy that to our clipboard. It adds it to our current stage, and we can paste that here in the field. So we'll go ahead and apply. And we'll exit our edit pane. And let's change our width back to 1.8 meters. And we can see that the paving slabs have calculated that 6.5 square meters will be required for this area. However, we can see that it is not attached to the quantity component. The number of paving slabs are not increasing as we increase the number of sheds that need to be built. So to fix that, we'll simply go back into our materials edit pane, and we'll modify our quantity formula here as area multiplied by $quantity. And again, we're not expected to remember all these variables. We can get that from the variables window here. And here is our quantity variable. Copy that and paste it into our quantity field. Apply that, close our window, exit edit mode, and now as we change the quantity of sheds, we can see that the square meters of paving slabs are also changing. So our module is becoming even more dynamic. Next, we'll want to connect the quantities of our sharp sand. So let's enter back into edit mode and select our sharp sand. And for the sharp sand, the quantity formula might be a little bit more complex than will just fit in this small area here. So we can select this box to enlarge our formula pane. And this gives us a larger window with which to type our formula in. So for our sharp sand, we'll require to know the area of the garden shed multiplied by the quantity. And again, we can get all of these variables from the variables window just by clicking here. But each bulk bag of sharp sand is only adequate for about 10 square meters. So we'll put a divider here between 10 square meters. And then we can apply the formula and then apply the changes. And you can see the sharp sand quantity has updated according to the area and quantity set. And if we change the quantity of our sheds, we can see the sharp sand also reflects that as well. Now we'll want to make the labor for installing the garden shed dynamic as well. And we can just click on this to open the material edit for install garden shed. Or, just as a reminder, we can also click the options icon and edit this material. And in fact, what we're editing here is labor, but it's still contained within the material edit pane. So for quantity, we know it's approximately 5 hours to install a single garden shed, but this needs to be applied by as many quantity of garden sheds as we'll be installing. So we'll add the variable here, multiplied by $quantity. And then we can apply that to the estimate. And now, when we change the quantity of sheds, we can see that the hours are also reflected in the labor to install. So let's do the same thing to the labor for applying the 2 coats of wood stain. We'll select that. And for applying the wood stain, it's 4.5 hours per shed. So we'll add a multiplier here by quantity of sheds and apply that to the module. And you'll see that we get an error here, NaN. This stands for not a number. And the reason for this is that this item of labor is held within a separate stage. This is within the decorating stage. So far, we've only been editing within the main stage and the shed stage. And this happened because I typed in $QTY manually. If we go into our variables list here, we can see that the $QTY is not contained within this current stage, which is the decorating stage. If we take a look in main, we can see that $QTY is here. If we copy that to the clipboard, it is automatically copied to the current stage as well. And by doing that, our NaN error has automatically been updated to reflect the accurate quantity of hours. So we'll just save our changes here, close our window, exit edit mode, and now as we change the quantity of our sheds, we can see that the labor hours for applying the wood stain is also changing accurately. And we haven't forgotten our wood stain. Let's go back into edit mode and select our wood stain. And again, this can be a rather complicated formula, so let's expand our formula window. And let's set our wood stain formula as $width times 2 plus $length times 2. And we'll enclose this in its own set of brackets, so this calculation is done first. Oh, and we'll correct our typo here. And we know the height of our shed is 2.5 meters, so we will multiply this by 2.5 for the height. And we will multiply this by the quantity of sheds to be built. And then we'll have to divide this by the coverage per tub of wood stain. And this is usually marked on the tub. This is the amount of area that a tub of wood stain will cover. So in this case, we'll say about 4 square meters. So we can apply this formula to our edit pane here. And now, rather than selecting each, we will change this to liters. And now we can apply this to the module. And again, we see we have the same not a number error. So we can fix this by going into variable and looking for the variables that we included. Width and length are not a part of the decorating stage, so we'll go into main and we will copy width and we will copy length. and that clears the error. We'll just save that, close our window, and now we can see that our wood stain is also dynamic by the quantity as well as by the area of our shed. And we have input the formula here for quantity by liters, but we can also change the unit from liters to each. And Price-A-Job will automatically do the calculation knowing that there are 2.5 liters per tub. So we would require 11.4 tubs at 2.5 liters each in order to provide 28.5 liters. So let's exit our edit mode. And we see now, by changing our quantity, that all of our materials and labor are now dynamic. But looking at the price of our shed, it is not dynamic depending on the area of the shed. Regardless of what size shed we're building, we have the same set price. So perhaps this should be based on the area of the shed as opposed to a fixed rate. So again, let's enter edit mode, and we'll go to our main stage and we'll add a new component. This time, the component type that we'll choose will be an input range, and this is a slider component. So for title, let's call this price per meter squared. And for the variable ID, we will call this price. And let's select an icon for this. I don't think we have a currency icon here, so we'll go ahead and select one from our computer. And we will set the default value at 100. And for the range, let's set the minimum range to 50 and the maximum to 200. And for steps, we'll change this to 10 units. And this will be the number of units that are increased with each step between the minimum and maximum as we increase or decrease the slider. Now you can see that our new component has been added to the bottom of our components list here, and we'd rather have it up higher to the top. So let's go ahead and change the position to 2. And then we can save this component. And now let's go into our quantity component here, and we'll edit this. We'll change its position to 1, and we'll change its width back down to 6, which is a half line, and save that. So now our quantity and our price are side by side, and our width and length are side by side. And if we click on our new price component, here is the slider underneath, and as we adjust our slider up and down, you can see it is incrementing in steps of 10 as we set, between a range of 50 as a minimum and 200 as a maximum. But predictably, nothing is happening with the price of our shed in our materials estimate. That's because we haven't connected the component yet. So to fix this, we'll just note that we are still in edit mode because of the yellow highlights, and we'll select our garden shed material. And under our price field, we'll set a formula of price multiplied by area and apply those changes. And you see that we get a not a number error, and you probably already know the reason why. Let's go take a look in our variables, and we can see that under our current stage that we're working on, we do not have the price variable, although area does exist. So if we take a look in the main stage, we can see here is the new price variable that we just created. Let's go ahead and copy that to the clipboard. That copies it to our current stage and clears our error. Now, when we adjust our slider, the price of our shed is also dynamic based on the price per square meter. And if we adjust the area of our shed, the price is also reflected by the size of the shed that's being built. Now we may feel a little restricted by having a single choice of wood stain here under our decorating, and we can make this dynamic as well. What we'll do this time is under the decorating stage, we will click the menu button and add a component to decorating. And this time for the component type, we'll choose a different one and we'll scroll up to select a pack. And this tends to be a rather wide component, so we'll make sure that it is maximum width of 12. And for the title, we will call this wood stain, and for the variable ID, we'll also call this wood stain. Now let's choose a package. And this opens the library of packages, And under the search field here, we can just enter stain. And under the results, we can see a wood stain package here. So we'll just move across to the side and we'll click the plus button to add this to our packages. And if we look in the options, we'll see that there's one here for default material. We'll select the drop-down button here, and we'll choose the Saddleton Matte Natural as a default material. And then we can go ahead and save this component. And now you can see the component has been added to our decorating stage here. And if we choose from the drop-down, there is a variety of wood stains available. The default is shown here in our estimating pane, but if we chose something different, it automatically updates here within the decorating materials. But as you can see, the quantities are not dynamic because this hasn't been connected yet. So we're still in edit mode. Let's go ahead and edit the old material here. And from here, we can highlight all and copy to our clipboard. And then we can go into our new material and paste that same formula here into our quantity for the new material pack that we just added, and apply. And now you can see that the quantity of our new material is dynamic just as the old one was. And now that we have this new dynamic material here, we no longer require this non-dynamic one. So let's go ahead and select the menu, and we'll just remove this one from our estimate. Now we have a dynamic material where we can choose the material from the Price of Job library. And the quantity is automatically calculated based on the volume of the tubs. In this case, it's a 2.5 liter tub, so we only need 5.6 units. Or we can convert that to liters. That's 14 liters. But if we were to choose a material that's only a 1 liter tub, Price of Job automatically does that calculation. We would need 14 1-liter tubs, or in liters, that would be 14 liters. And as we adjust the quantity of sheds, the quantity of wood stain is also dynamic, as well as the area of our shed. Now let's add another component to our decorating stage. So we'll select the decorating menu and add component. And this time we'll add a new type of component. We will choose this time multi-labor, or multi-select as we call it. So similar to our select pack component that we just added, the multi-labor or multi-select component is also a rather wide component. So let's set the width to a maximum of 12. And for title, let's call this accessories. And for the ID, we will call this multi-select. And then we'll choose an icon to represent our various wood stain accessories. And we can probably find something here in the library. Here's an icon here that would seem to fit. And then we can go ahead and add new. And this opens the Price of Job library of packs. So let's go ahead and do a search. First, we'll search for some fillers. And here is the Price of Job fillers pack. So we can go ahead and go across the line here to click the plus button to add this one. And let's do another search. This time we will look for sealants. And here is the sealants pack. So we'll go ahead and add that as well. And let's do one more. Let's look for primers. And here is the primers and undercoats pack. So let's go ahead and add that one. And now we can exit our edit packs page, and we can see here are the packs of filters, sealants, primers, and undercoats added to our accessories multi-select. So we'll go ahead and save these changes and exit edit mode. And here we can see is our accessories pack. We can select here, and this opens up an accessories pane that allows us to choose from fillers, sealants, and primers and undercoats. And any of these accessories that we need to add to our estimate, we can do so simply by selecting from the drop-down list below. And here's a list of all of our accessories added. We can adjust the quantities here for each. And these are all added to our decorating estimate here down below. Now these can be chosen as an as-needed basis. So for now, I'll just remove these accessories. And this can be done by selecting the materials options and then clicking remove. Or we can go to the decorating stage and select the accessories tab. This opens the accessories window where we can adjust the quantities or simply delete the material. And let's set our slider to our default of 100. We'll adjust our quantity to 1. We'll set our default width and length appropriately. And now let's go ahead and save this template. We'll save this as a new template into our landscaping category, and we'll add this to our Garden Shed Simple, and this will be called Garden Shed Advanced. And save. And we can see that has been saved here in our landscaping category, Garden Shed Advanced. So now, if we delete this module that we're working on, starting from a clean slate, rather than building a new module from scratch, we can just go to our landscaping category and select Garden Shed Advanced. And recall this fully dynamic advanced garden shed module with all of the components and fully dynamic materials and labor. And that's how to make a simple custom module more advanced by adding adjustable components and dynamic settings. In the next tutorial, we'll discuss some handy tips and tricks to finish your custom module. Thank you for using Price-A-Job.